Hello there, Di here. Today I'm showing you how I made a card for my son's birthday using mixed media, which is not something I'm terribly comfortable with or done much of. In fact, I think this is probably the first card I've made trying to use almost all of those techniques. I started off with distress inks. I think it was peeled paint, and I was going to use wild honey, but I changed my mind and went to rusty hinge because of the additional depth of colour, and loaded up my piece of watercolour paper. It's an Archer's Smooth 300 GSM and it's absolutely delicious. I think it's the new love in my life. Here I'm colouring up, what is it, a Hero Arts Flourishes stamp that I've had for ages that I love to use. It's a lovely stamp with the two colours, and I'm going to give it a good spritz of water and apply that into the background across those colours. Leave it on there for a little while to soak in, despite appearances to the contrary, and give it a slight dry before I get out an old waltzing mouse zigzag background stamp. And I think I'm using gathered twigs on that one, again with a bit of water. One of my biggest problems with mixed media techniques is I fret terribly when things aren't straight or if they don't stamp properly, and as you can see there's a bit of a line across it, and I want to throw it out and start again, but I'm learning not to. I'm learning just to persevere, because in the end you don't really see any of that. This is a little grid stamp. I think this was a Kaisercraft one. I've had it for ages, and I've just applied some stays on jet black with that and putting a bit more into the background. I've got a little Tim Holtz script stamp that I'm just putting on. Again, it really hurts my heart to have that so crooked, but I'm getting over it. Now I wanted to add some darkness to the edges, and I went again with the gathered twigs, but to no avail. There wasn't enough colour there. So I got out my mixed media ink palette and got started. I think at first I used the Vintage Photo and then went to the Ground Espresso, which is in the bottom left-hand quadrant is the Ground Espresso. And I was steaming away madly with this, and I suddenly thought, now these are permanent inks. Wanted to put some watermarking into the background before I got into the permanent stuff, so I stopped what I was doing and splashed on a bit of water just to bleach the colour from the background and get some nice variations in colour when you do that. So then I got back into the darkening up the edges. I still don't really know whether those permanent mixed media inks react with water or not. I must test that and see. Busy darkening up all the colours there. I was really pleased with how this turned out. It's hardly groundbreaking stuff, and I know everyone else does it, and some people do it so brilliantly, but for me this is new stuff. I don't have a great deal of stencils, but I wanted to try and incorporate a little bit of blue because there's blue on the crazy bird that I was using as the focal point of the card. So I used some chipped sapphire to put some little stars, and really they were quite lost. There's a little bit of them in the finished card, but they're not really noticeable. But I guess it's like everything, it adds to the dimension and the layering. This is a portion of a large Kaisercraft circles stencil that I cut apart because it was I bought it mainly for using with my jelly plate. It's a very large one, just too difficult. So, and I'm using that little straight one. I really must get some more stencils because I find that I'm wanting to use them more these days after playing with the brushers. Finally got out the black soot and really getting those edges blackened up. Then I thought maybe I'd put a little bit more, this is actually wild honey, not rusty hinge, but just to put a little bit more of a glow into that center part of the car, a bit more color. So I used wild honey on the goldy section and some more peel paint on the bottom section, just to give that color a bit more intensity. Then I got out an old Annabelle stamp set and put a few blotches and daggy bits on, including some coffee rings. My son keeps me supplied with coffee, and not always does he remember to wipe the bench after he's made it. So the coffee rings are for that. I hope he never watches this video. I might never get another cup of coffee again. I give this periodical drying sessions with my heat tool. I'm just sorting through a few stamps and bits and pieces that I had there. I decided to add the nibs from, I think it's Tim Holtz Small Fragments or something like that. Put them in on the side, and also the little Harlequin pattern stamp, which I use quite a lot. It's quite useful. I wanted to put some splatters on, so I got out the some black acrylic paint and just popped a little bit onto the craft mat with some water and my little whisk brush, and can't really see in the photo, but gave it some fine splatters, gave it a dry, dabbed on a little bit of Kaisercraft Gold spray. I didn't want too much gleaming in the background, but I just wanted to put a little bit because it's gold embossing on the bird. This is white pearl acrylic paint, and again I'm just this is the brave bit for me. I'm just wanting some white, but I didn't particularly want fine splatters, so I wanted to try and put sort of slashy lines, and it worked really well. It doesn't look too contrived, and I got them sort of reasonably disorderly, so I was quite pleased with how they turned out. I watch a lot of videos, or I've been watching just recently on YouTube, called Made by Sani. I'll put her YouTube links below, and one thing she always does is put washi tape. Here I'm just making a little label and stamping it with a paper tray ink stamp, adding some foam adhesive to the back of that and a little bit of liquid adhesive to give it some immediate slide to get it straight, and then I get onto the washi tape. That was a direct copy from Sani. She always puts a couple of strands of washi across her cards, and because I rarely use washi tape, I thought it was a brilliant idea. There's the little bird. I'm just going to put some foam tape onto the back of him. I've embossed his little top knot and tail and legs in gold, just to give him a bit of a party feel. And I think the contrast is quite good. I realised at this point that I hadn't blackened the edges, so went in with my brush and got that done. Removed the backing tape and put him into position on the card. There he is, looking gorgeous. Now for the washi tape. This is a little gold and black strip that I have never used before, so I was glad to get that out and get it used a little. I was going to put it up the other way and thought, no, that's too organised. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what Sani does and just have it straight across the card. I went to put a black marble one on, but I didn't like the colouring, so I changed it for black and white stripes, which he follows Collingwood Football Club, and even though they weren't in the finals yesterday, I've included that. Just layering that up on a piece of black cardstock for additional weight. There's the card, I've made that, and putting it together onto the card base, just plain black. The card is done, looking good. There's some still photos here with the envelope, and enjoy. That's it. I was quite pleased with it. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye now.